What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well. In this video, I want to talk about the MVP race. This is one of the most interesting races we've had in years, and what makes this one unique is the amount of players legitimately making great cases. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had created separation as the MVP favorite for a large stretch of this season, but the race has heated up in these last few weeks, and now the MVP doesn't seem so clear. Wembanyama and Luka Doncic are playing their best basketball of the season as of late, surging up the ladder, and are really giving SGA a run for his money. I'm going to go over my 5 favorites for the award, dissect what their cases are, and crown who I believe should be the 2026 NBA MVP. Starting with who I think has the 5th best case and who will probably end up 5th on the MVP ladder if he even meets the 65 game mark, that's Cade Cunningham. This has been a career year for Cade and a historic season for the Pistons. They're on pace for 60 wins, and Cade's raw production is great while elevating Detroit's offense to a 121.3 rating while he's on the floor. That's elite offense, which is very impressive considering he's doing it with an extremely limited offensive supporting cast. He's also a better defender than at least 2 other players in this conversation, and you could argue SGA too. I'm not sure if I would, but I would definitely hear it out. That being said, I do think Cade has the weakest case here, and that's why he's in my 5th spot. I think he's great and can do a lot with a little. I truly do value his defense as well. He just doesn't bring the same level of impact as the other 4 guys on my list though. I think Cade gets a lot of credit for the Pistons' evolution from one of the worst teams in the NBA to now the top seed in the Eastern Conference. And he absolutely does deserve that, but a super underrated aspect of the Pistons' success is the improvements around the roster and how much healthier they've been than in seasons past. None of these names are necessarily a big fish, but the growth of a Dennis Jenkins, the addition of a Duncan Robinson, and the emergence of Jalen Duren as an all-star, those are all significant improvements. This isn't to say Cade hasn't gotten better over the past few seasons, but his improvements have largely been marginal. And not that this doesn't lack context, but the Pistons have fared very well this season without Cade. There's also some pretty big limitations in Cade's game that keep his impact out of that tip-top level. He's an okay 3-point shooter, but certainly not a good one. He'll have games where he only attempts a couple from beyond the arc and doesn't hit any, which curbs his ability to stress a defense. Overall, he's just not super efficient. There's the 3-point shooting for one, but his rim efficiency also just isn't in the same stratosphere as the other MVP candidates. 62.5% between 0 to 3 feet doesn't sound too bad until you look at Shai, Luka, Jokic, Wemby, Jaylen Brown. They're all well over 75%. Shout out to Luka, by the way, who's at almost 83% around the rim. That's so absurd. I just wish he drove as much as he used to. So yeah, Cade not being able to produce elite offense for himself in the 2 most valuable areas is a severe limiting factor towards his impact, and his specific value to the Pistons is surpassed by a few other names on this list. In my 4th spot, I have Luka Doncic. The Lakers have been playing an elite stretch of basketball these past few weeks and are ramping up into one of the best teams in the West. A lot of that has to do with Luka, who's kicked his efficiency up a level and is propelling the 6th best offense since the All-Star break. He, as well as the whole team, have been more engaged defensively since then, and Luka's averaging 35.5, 8, and 7.5 on over 40% from 3 and over 2 steals a game. He's kicked his scoring into another gear with this jump shooting stretch, and in his last 10 games, he's had 40 or more 5 times, including a 51-point and 60-point performance. The Lakers are also 6-6 without Luka on the season. That's a worse record than OKC without Shai, San Antonio without Wemby, Detroit without Cade, and even Denver without Jokic, who famously fall apart when he's not playing. The Lakers are also just not as good as those teams, but hey, they're a 3 seed and are tied for the 5th best record in the league. The reason I have Luka here in my 4 spot has a lot to do with the totality of this season. If the season started 2 months ago, we'd be having a very different conversation. But Luka just wasn't playing at that same level as a Jokic or Shai or Wemby at times for most of the season prior to the All-Star break. He's also still turning the ball over a lot, even as the efficiency has gotten better in this stretch, which itself is largely due to a hot streak of shooting which has a much higher variance and could regress at any moment. And despite the monster numbers, it's not translating to the best team results. The Lakers' record is deceivingly good, but they're only the 8th best offense, not to mention a bottom 10 defense. Luka's got better counting stats than basically anyone else in this conversation, but he also has a 100th percentile 36.8% usage rate. It's the highest of any player in the league, and if you filter out garbage time, is over 40%. That overwhelming ball dominance rarely translates to the best team results. For example, Jaylen Brown is averaging close to 30 points per game this season, but the Celtics offense is not even half a point better with him on. So Luka's been on fire, and it's a big part of the Lakers being much better as of late, but it's still not the most impactful, and this season started in October. He hasn't been this player the whole time. Next up, in my third spot, I have Nikola Jokic. Despite the slow return from his knee injury, Jokic still has a transformational on-off swing of plus 14.2. Something important to keep in mind is that the Nuggets have been severely impacted by injuries this season. Jokic missed a month, Peyton Watson was out for a month and a half and has only played a few games on-off since coming back. Cam Johnson has missed over 25 games, and Aaron Gordon has missed well over half the season. So their record really doesn't reflect the heights they've reached at times this season, and yet the Nuggets are still on pace for over 50 wins, and somehow they are still the number one offense. A lot of that is just Nikola Jokic, who gives Denver a 127.7 offensive rating when he's on the floor. And even though Denver's defense is mediocre to below average, it's actually better when Jokic is on rather than off. The raw counting stats aren't quite as preposterous as they were last season, where Jokic might have actually had the greatest offensive season of all time, but he's still putting up gaudy numbers at a stupidly efficient mark. He's probably the box score GOAT, at least of the modern era. For much of the season, the MVP award was a two-man race between Jokic and SGA. The reason Jokic has fallen to third for me is a few things. One, I really think we saw an extended stretch post-injury where he was just not playing at that top-tier level. Jokic returned on January 30th, and the Nuggets are 15-12 since then, which is 2 full months of almost 500 basketball. Again, they've dealt with a lot of injuries and are only getting back to full strength now, but some of it was just Jokic not being as great. The Nuggets also performed well while he was out. Uncharacteristically, they've gone 10-6 in games Jokic doesn't play, and there's a few reasons for that. The added depth with guys like Jonas Valanciunas, who admittedly has fallen out of the rotation as of late, with the Nuggets opting for more small ball lineups, but he still played almost 60 games this season. And guys like Spencer Jones, Tim Hardaway Jr., Bruce Brown, they've helped Denver put together some effective units when Jokic isn't playing. A big part of those non-Jokic lineups finding success is also due to Jamal Murray, who's been having a career All-NBA level season. We can't ignore that no one else on this list has a co-star that's been as good or as healthy as Jamal Murray has been this season. He has a plus 6.7 on-off swing and has missed 5 games. No other MVP candidate has had that privilege this season. Shai still had Chet amidst all of OKC's injury problems, but Jamal Murray is infinitely more equipped to carry an offense and win games without his superstar than Chet is. Peyton Watson's emergence as a possible future star during that stretch when Jokic was injured was also a key factor in Denver's ability to float without him. And then, I think it's fair to mention, I know he's missed a ton of time this season, but his absence is so noticeable even when Jokic is playing. The Nuggets are just fundamentally not the same team without Aaron Gordon. The play finishing, versatility, ability to guard the other team's best player, the three-point shooting development over the past couple seasons, he really puts the Nuggets over the top. Gordon is in that rare tier of role player who's so valuable, talented, and versatile that they're borderline a star. Guys like Derek White and Alex Caruso that I'm not sure everyone notices how impactful they are, but can legitimately be game-breaking players with their two-way versatility. Similar to Luka, although Jokic has definitely been better for more of the season than he has, but I just don't think he was playing his best basketball for too significant a portion of the season. My top 2 guys have had higher floors the entire time, along with more team success. In my second spot, as the MVP runner-up, I have Victor Wembanyama. The newcomer to this conversation, Wemby's case for MVP has surged in these past few weeks. On the NBA's latest MVP ladder, Wemby grabbed the top spot for the first time, and it's really no surprise. The Spurs have been great and massively exceeding expectations all season, but ever since the All-Star break, they've turned it up another level, and right now, honestly, it looks like it's them and OKC. They're 24-2 in their last 26 games, 2 games back of OKC, and they might actually win 60 games. This is due to everybody on the roster. I don't want to downplay the Spurs as a whole to prop up Wemby's case for MVP, but he is far and away the largest contributor to that. He is the best defensive player in the NBA, and it's by a larger margin than either SGA or Jokic have as the best offensive player. Wemby is already among the 3 most impactful defenders of the modern era, and he still has plenty of areas where he can develop further. His offensive impact is also greatly misunderstood. On any given night, Wemby can go for 30-35 points, but he is a significantly less consistent scorer than a Luka, Shai, or Jokic. He can struggle at times to get to his spots and can have his base disrupted with extreme physicality, and those both make a ton of sense. Wemby's a third-year player. He also doesn't produce big assist numbers, which makes people think he's not a hugely impactful playmaker, but in fairness, there are plenty of nights where he records 6 or more. However, what can't be measured in the box score, and even in a lot of advanced metrics that try, is his gravity. Wemby draws so much attention on both ends of the floor. Think about the threat he has as a roller because of the ridiculously large radius his teammates have to find him, which just collapses defenses. The Spurs take the most corner threes per game and the 6th most shots in the restricted area. Those are the most efficient shots there are, and a lot of what gets San Antonio open for those is because of Wemby's gravity. Of course, he's far from the most polished isolation player, but he has the 3-point shot and is extremely fluid and agile. If Wemby decides he wants to get to the rim, there's not much you can do to stop him. Now, that's certainly one of the things that limits his offensive value, when he settles for jumpers and doesn't maximize his physicality, but again, he's far from a finished product on that end, and he's still this good. So while he's obviously not the best offensive player in the league, when you factor in the overall two-way impact, it might be enough to make him the best player in the NBA already. I can't go that far just yet, not that I have any doubts on his ability to deliver the same kind of impact in the postseason, but I have a hard time crowning a guy as the best player before he's ever stepped foot in the playoffs. I'm not as concerned about any of the physicality or slowed down half-court stuff. I'm more just curious to see how he adapts and responds to teams learning him over the course of a series and hopefully multiple. The playoffs is such a chess game of, okay, they figured out how to stop me from doing this, what's my counter to their counter now? And it's important a player navigates that successfully if they want to be considered the best in the world. Not that you have to be the best player in the NBA to be the MVP, and increasingly, I think there's a real possibility Wemby actually wins this thing, which is crazy to say because he's only 22. Also, all the playoff stuff really doesn't, or at least shouldn't, impact his case for MVP, which is ultimately a regular season award. Wemby now has the highest on-off swing of anyone on the list. When he's on the floor, the Spurs have a 123.2 offensive rating and a 106.8 defensive rating. That'd be the best offense in the league and the second best defense, and he does all of this in less than 30 minutes a game. I'm not even 100% sure I fathom the full extent of his impact, and I still think this highly of him. And not that it pertains to this season in particular, but the fact that Wemby is still so raw is legitimately terrifying. Not even just offensively, where it's pretty easy to see him become a more consistent scorer and better reader out of double teams, but he's also not the most disciplined defender, or the defender with the best timing, and he's still the most impactful on that end by far. The league might actually have to do something about him in 3 to 4 years. I find myself going back to the same explanation for why I had Luka and Jokic ranked where they were. This conversation around, hold up, is Wemby maybe the MVP, really only started in the past month or so. Similarly, it doesn't feel like the Spurs shot up into a bona fide contender status until more recently, despite being great the whole season. The player in my number 1 spot has just had such a superb, all-time great season from front to end, while Wemby didn't start right where he is now. The French phenom keeps climbing, and it feels like there's no limit to how high he can go, but the other guy has basically been flawless since the start. Which is why in my number 1 spot, my pick for MVP of the 2025-26 NBA season is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Prior to the start of the season, I did not think Shai was the best player in the world. I'm sure OKC fans did, but the previous 2 regular seasons and the 2025 playoffs weren't enough to convince me he was better than Nikola Jokic. But this season, I do feel like he's become the best player in the NBA. I don't think he's ran away with it, and it's in part because Jokic has been inconsistent this season, but when Jokic has been on, he's been as good as he ever has, and Shai's still been better. In their direct head-to-heads, where OKC have gone 3-0 this season, Jokic has been awesome. Almost 24 points, 13 rebounds, and 12 assists on over 50% from the field. But Shai's averaged 35, 12, and 6 on 56% from the field, with less than 2 turnovers per game. Jokic has been forced into 4 turnovers per game and has consistently struggled beating OKC's ball pressure. One of the most common misconceptions surrounding SGA is that because OKC is the best team in the league, which they are, it means Shai's offensive environment is easier than other players and it's not as impressive. So-and-so could have that kind of efficiency too if they had OKC's spacing, says a lot of people who have never seen OKC's spacing. The Thunder are the best team in the league because they have by far the best defense, with game over game the most consistent energy and engagement, and because they have SGA, who is peaking as a top 20 player of all time. But everyone outside of SGA is a significantly flawed offensive player. It might look like they've got a bunch of dudes that are great 3-point shooters, but they're mostly catch and shoot or spot up guys. Only Isaiah Joe and Jared McCain are consistently reliable, dynamic shooters. The rest of the roster is also pretty limited in terms of self-creation and putting the ball on the floor. Even Jalen Williams has really struggled with his jump shot and half-court offense. He has a tendency to settle for tougher shots, which he's neither good enough at to justify, nor does it create much value for the team. AJ Mitchell has helped OKC and Shai a lot in this regard, and he's emerged this season as someone a bit more fit to take on that playmaking and self-creation load. But even then, Mitchell isn't a consistent 3-point shooter, is one of the weakest defenders on the roster, and can struggle with the lack of size or athleticism. So let's talk about Shai's offensive brilliance. 31.5 points, 6.5 assists, 4.5 rebounds, a steal and a half with 2 turnovers per game on almost 56% from the field, almost 40% from 3, and 89% from the line. He has a true shooting of 67%, just barely behind Jokic, while being a guard. It's hard to comprehend just how few mistakes SGA makes, especially when you consider the volume of offensive possessions he leads. We are talking about Michael Jordan, Steve Nash levels of efficiency for a guard. There's no one even remotely close to doing what Shai is doing in the NBA right now. If you want the scoring of a Luka, SGA gives you about 90% of it on significantly better efficiency. If you want a lead offensive creator who has the unique ability to limit turnovers like a Tyrese Halliburton, Shai's right there with him on significantly higher usage while scoring a shit ton more. I know Hallie hasn't played this season, he's just a good example for that. And if you want a guard who can shoulder a ridiculous amount of offensive volume with extremely limited rosters and go deep into the playoffs like Jalen Brunson did in his first few seasons with the Knicks, Shai can do that with elite efficiency. He is the standard of excellence right now. OKC has also been one of the most injured teams in the league. Jalen Williams has played less than 30 games this season, Alex Caruso has missed more than 20 games, Aaron Wiggins has missed almost 20 games, Lou Dort has missed like 15, AJ Mitchell's missed like 25, and Hardenside's missed almost half the season. There's been very few stretches where OKC has had consistent and reliable health from its top players, and they've still got the best record in the league, and they're still gonna win 60 games, hell, maybe even 65. Because as long as Shai is out there, OKC are the favorites against any team on any day. When examining the totality of each of these players' seasons, I'm just not sure how you could come away thinking anybody's had a better season or been better themselves than SGA. He's my MVP this season. I also think he's most likely to actually win it. Something we do have to contend with is that the criteria for MVP changes what feels like every year and depending on who you ask. I'm not a fan of the best player on the best team should automatically win the MVP argument, despite that being what Shai's been for the past 2 seasons. Being the best player on the best team doesn't mean you have the greatest impact by default, but the variety of situations and play styles that you could drop SGA into and he would elevate the team to a higher level is a greater number than anyone in the NBA right now. For all these reasons, and probably a few more, that's why Shai Gilgeous-Alexander should be the MVP this season. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, leaving a like would be super helpful and much appreciated. Let me know who you think should win the MVP award this season. I'd love to hear your thoughts and continue the conversation down below. Check me out on TikTok. I post every day, multiple times a day. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. Stay safe and see you in the next one.